Congrats on getting beyond 1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of EasyPay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building. And you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond 1 million. Kasim Aslam, a great friend, recently had an 8-figure plus exit from his marketing agency. But most importantly, the guy is wicked smart, very, very clever marketing techniques that are super applicable to so many spaces today, and a crazy, wild, ranging, interesting conversation with this cat. I hope you enjoy. Kasim Aslam, I am excited to see you once again. This is attempt number 3 for us to record this, and I'm fired up because you always have good things to say.
Yeah, I hope I don't let you down, Brad. I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
I think it's unlikely. So I know you because we were in a mastermind together for several years called War Room that has now split off. It has disbanded and turned into some other things. One of those things, Driven, you are a principal of and running, which is exciting. But the reason it's exciting is because War Room would have these contests called Wicked Smart. And it was basically, the premise of this thing was to... Wait, is Driven doing that too now?
Yeah. We've hosted 2 events so far, and we've had a Wicked Smart at both of them.
And so you tell me the premise, because this is important and it kind of highlights. So I'll tell you the framework for any of these groups is some of it's pay to play, like you pay admission and you get it, which means that you have to have the money to do it. Okay, that's a shitty qualifier, but it's at least some qualifier. But the other is that depending on the group, there are really good people in the room. And so this contest highlights the best of them. And how does it work?
You accept submissions throughout the entire event. So, and you'll notice that it's the primary call to action. It was the primary call to action throughout War Room. It was the primary call to action at Driven. It's like, hey, make sure to get your Wicked Smart submissions in. I think we had almost 30 submissions in a room of 100 people, which is a lot. And people submit their best ideas. It has to be something that you can present in about 5 to 10 minutes. And so it's a one hitter. You can't give me the whole process or the idiot's guide. And then we narrow down the list, and anywhere between 10 and 15 people present. And then the audience votes, and the winner takes home the Wicked Smart trophy. And then the second place, the runner-up takes home the not Wicked Smart trophy, which is a little tongue-in-cheek jab. And then the third is like almost smart. I forget what it is, but it's, there's a lot about it that's irreverent, but it's pretty cool to see. It's already a room of really smart people, so you see the smartest people in the room battling it out for smart glory.
Yeah, and the reason that I think it's relevant to anybody listening to this is because it is, generally speaking, at least the way War Room always worked, has to be a proven concept. So not just an idea, but something you've actually done that you can show results for. So, hey, I figured out this new thing. This is how I did it. And these are the results that I got. And you won that 6 times, 4 times, 8 times, 12 times, 5 times
in a row.
I was in there a lot of times in a row. And that's because you are a very, very clever marketer. And so I want to start with, well, now we're way past starting, but I want to highlight one of those because I think they're super fun. And some of them are super relevant even now, or kind of timeless. And some are like hacks. But can you give me one of your best marketing tips that somebody could potentially use today? Yeah,
the one that still freaks me out, that shouldn't be allowed or legal, it wasn't even my idea. It was my business partner's idea. I just got to benefit from it because he wasn't in War Room. We used login URLs for targeting instead of the Google Ads ecosystem. And the reason this works is, and I'm guessing at why it works, by the way, but it's a pretty good guess based off of, I've got $100 million a year in Google Ads spend under management. So I see a lot. I have a lot of access to data. The Google search bar and the Google URL bar are the exact same bar. So when you go to search for something, or when you go to a URL directly, it's the same repository that's accepting this input. And then Google catalogs those inputs on scales that we'll never be able to even compute, right? But what Google's doing is it wants to know, what does Brad want, like, need, have? How do you think? It has 72 million demographic and psychographic profiling factors in every human on the planet. And it's progressive profiling. It's constantly updating your user record. So when you enter anything into the Google search bar, Google is cataloging that thing. Well, we figured out that we could actually target people based off of not just the URL that they were going to, but the expansion of that URL. So, for example, I'm one of the highest ranked Go High Level affiliates. I think I was number 4 at my peak. I just won a Tesla. They just sent me an email being like, you got the, like there's all these hoops I have to jump through, and then I get a Tesla. I know. And then here's this funny part, dude, is I didn't do anything. Like all the other Go High Level affiliates had to like pound pavement, run challenges, build audiences. All we did was we went to SharpSpring's login URL. And so if you go to, and I don't know, it's like sharpspring.com/login. But if you're logging into SharpSpring, I know for a fact, and I'm pretty sure there's a delineation in the agency URL and the user URL because SharpSpring is a white label product. And so if you're logging into SharpSpring, I know for a fact you're an agency using this CRM that's charging you on a per user basis. So I just ran ads to those people saying, hey, if you're using SharpSpring, you're leaving money on the table. We messed with their business so much. The CEO of SharpSpring called the CEO of High Level and said, guys, why are you doing this to us? Why are you picking on us personally? And Sean had to say, dude, this is one of my affiliates. I have no idea what you're talking about. He told me the story later. But if you think about, if you take that and expand it further, you could target people based off of sexual orientation, who's in Alcoholics Anonymous, who's about to declare bankruptcy, who's cheating on their spouse, what kink somebody has, things that we just shouldn't be able to target people on. And this targeting I won that award 2 years ago, and we still use it. It's unreal that it's even possible. And if you get really creative, it can yield some pretty amazing results.
That's awesome. So the tip there is when you're looking at any of your targeting, specifically Google, right?
Yeah, I don't know of another network that has the capability of pulling this off because nobody else has the data. So it's just in Google, and it's also only specific Google campaign types. Like you couldn't necessarily run at least I've never tried running it outside of anything other than YouTube. I'm sure it would work in display. I think the Google Display Network has as robust a custom audience segmenting. But
and the general idea here is you're targeting URLs because you know that they're using that product. So you can get any software product's user list functionally by targeting the login URL of that company.
That's exactly
that product.
Right. Yeah. And when people log into something, they're intrinsically qualifying themselves in a myriad of ways. Like if you wanted to target ultra high net worth people, right? Like, Chase has the Chase Bank, and then it has Chase Private Banking. And each financial institution has something along those lines. And so if you're trying to gen up accredited investors, or you're genning up people that are looking for the golden visa, or you know what I mean? Like there's a whole myriad of ways for you to begin really narrowing down hyper specific segments using this targeting feature.
What's a golden visa? Is that like the Amex Black Card?
Kinda. My wife and I are doing the golden visa right now. You go invest. It's about $500,000 in. It doesn't have to be a European country. We're doing it in Portugal, but most of the golden visas are in Europe. And over a period of time, you effectively earn full citizenship. And so we plunked a bunch of money into. Here's what's crazy, dude. Is you get the money back. It's guaranteed by one of the largest luxury resort companies in the world. They pay me 3% on my money, which isn't a lot, but it beats inflation. Well, it used to anyway. And in 5 years, I get the money back. And then I have full European citizenship for myself, my wife, my children, and my parents if they're over 65 years old, which I'm a card-carrying prepper. So I just like the idea of having second passport optionality, access to Europe without, jumping through hoops.
So it's not like the Amex Black Card. It's Visa, like admittance to another country.
That's right. Yeah.
Not a credit card. Okay. Well, this is my head. I'm credit card mode all the time.
I didn't realize that you would like perk up with the own brand. I'm sorry.
I was like, I just wanted a fancy credit card. I don't know.
That's so funny. Yeah. Go do the Golden Visa, dude. It's worth doing.
So I'll look at it. So I love that. It was a great tip. And the reason that you probably figured that out is because you grew an ad agency. So let's rewind because you sold it somewhat recently. And why don't we start with kind of the size of it when you sold it, any numbers you want to share around that, and then back up to how you built it. Yeah,
I sold it. I had 80 employees, more than that actually, but 80 core employees. And then, there's always support staff on the periphery. We were approaching 100, 200 clients. We were doing, and, I'll try to offer as much as I can to the listener without stepping on my NDAs. But we were doing about 2 million EBIT. And we sold for, the standard agency multiple is 6 to 8. And we sold, at the higher end of that. So I got a, what I would consider to be a healthy 8-figure exit, but it's low 8, but enough to where I never have to work again, which is interesting. And in a strange place to get to. I heard Tony Robbins talk about this a long time ago. He talked about be careful when you accomplish your goals because, you like, and this is the whole mantra of Driven. It's not the goal that's the pursuit. It's the pursuit that's the pursuit. And when you don't have a pursuit, like it gets real dark real quick, it's a strange place to be. And also really fun. And I'm really grateful for it. It was an all cash deal. I've got, we got 60 some odd % on the front end, and then I have a 2-year earnout. The company that bought us has been super fair. They've been way easier to work with than they were to negotiate with. That was the most nightmarish experience of my professional life, is going through that exit. It was 8 to 9 months long. It felt like a daily proctology exam. They left us at the altar 3 different times, which my business mentor who helped me manage the M&A deal said every deal dies 3 times. That's just what happens.
Have you done daily proctology exams before?
I have. That's more, I didn't know we were going to talk about hobbies on this call, Brad, but no, it's just what I assumed a daily proctology exam would feel like, because you wake up, you get into the office, you fire up your email, and then they're like, we need all of this information, and it's all stuff that makes you look and feel and sound stupid. It's like every client that's ever canceled on you and why, and you're like, well, gosh, how much time do you have? Every mistake that you've ever made, every refund you've ever had to issue, and it's just, and they're all the smartest guys in the world going M&A. Not the kindest, mind you, but, really, really brilliant people. And so you're dealing with these like Goldman Sachs fuckers that, it's funny because they're my friends now, since we're all part of the same organization. But while you're going through it, they're not fun to play with.
Well, I want to talk about the growth of the agency, but while we're on the exit, did that make you, knowing that you were going to have an earnout, did the pattern of negotiation make you hesitant to close the deal with this group, knowing how ruthless they were, difficult they were in the negotiation, knowing that you were going to have to work with them afterwards?
Yes. I was actually really skeptical about our ability to work with them afterwards. What I did, and I had a business partner, I'm 90, he's 10. What we decided was, we don't take any deal unless we're happy with the cash at close. So if I get the cash at close, and if that's all I ever get, then I'm kosher and I'm going to move on and love life, and that'll be fine. And I had a very specific number that I know would satiate my financial needs for the rest of my life. And so that was my number. I was like, as long as I have this covered, everything else is, academic at that point. And that's where we got, almost exactly. We had to fight to kind of like climb our way up there. But to the penny, we got enough cash at close to where he was satiated, I was satiated. And then I got to do something that I'm pretty proud of. And some people look down on you when you talk about these things. I think this is the type of thing that entrepreneurs should talk about, because I think it encourages this behavior. I gave more money, both in total and as a percentage of my deal, than anybody I know. And I know a bunch of friends that have had exits. I got to play Father Christmas with a lot of people. And dude, I talked about having almost 100 employees. They're in emerging nations, Philippines, Eastern Europe, South America, Latin America. And then some tons in the US and Canada too. And I got to hand folks sums of money that was literally life-changing. One of our employees bought his parents the first house their family's ever owned.
Wow.
This familial property that is going to be in the family now forever. They're in India, and that's, you don't let go of land in India. There's a gal in the Philippines who was a single mom, one of the hardest working humans who's ever worked with me. And I gave her what effectively amounts to about 6 years worth of salary. And now she's just got this nest egg that she gets to sit on. And I don't know what the quality of her life has been afterwards because we're all remote and that's a hard thing to see, but I know it's been positive. And I factored that into what I needed cash at close because I have this weird, I'm a diehard rabid libertarian that hates other libertarians. So what I'm about to say is going to fly in the face of that. And also I refuse to align with the weird leftist counterculture university student bullshit. That also says these same words. When I say it, I mean it in a very different way, but there's no such thing as a self-made man. There's no, I was raised by a blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We were from poverty. I'm effectively welfare baby. So I wasn't given money, right? It's like I didn't have the legacy, but I had so much help. And I think every entrepreneur, if you really are honest with yourself, it's unbelievable how much help we're given and how people really want you to succeed. I've had business mentors and friends and great clients and business partners and like so many people that just without them, I would have nothing. I'd have nothing. And my employees are like that. I had these people that took a chance on me, came and worked for me when, a lot of them could have had better jobs somewhere else paying more money. And, I realized that I offered a lot more flexibility and I think we were a really fun place to work, but I got this great big payday and I got it because of them. So I don't want to jump on the weird Marxist bandwagon because I hate that. And I want those people to drown in a vat of their own piss. That whole, like, you don't deserve anything that you've earned thing, I think it's one of the most vile ideological commitments that humanity has decided to champion. I think it sucks the soul out of people and it stops them from doing anything. But there's a healthy, it's Aristotle's golden mean, right? There's this middle ground that says, you know what? I did have a lot of help getting here. That got real soapboxy, dude. I'm so sorry. Feel free to edit out all of that. I didn't mean to go off on a weird tangent, but it was one of the best parts of the exit is like running around, getting to do this thing for these people that I loved. It was so much fun.
No, I love that in general, but I think you also hit on an interesting quandary in the beginning of that rant, which was, what are you going to pursue when you're done? And what is the pursuit going to be? And do you have one? And people handle that differently. People get to comfort or whatever number it is where they feel like they can be done effectively and maintain the lifestyle they want. And some of them go off the rails and, kind of piss everything away financially, emotionally, spiritually.
No.
Some of them kind of, I was going to say sail off into the sunset, but I don't know anybody that does that actually. Everybody I know.
I don't know anybody that do that either and stay there. I know some friends who are like, oh, I'm done now. But 18 months later, here they come back and better than ever.
That's what I get usually. I either see like it just presents problems to have nothing to do and people don't know their identity anymore because their identity was building the business. So your choice now has been to dump some time anyway into a driven in the mastermind and continuing to learn through that process and build community through that. What else though? What did you choose from there once you had sold the company and why?
Do you know Brandon Turner? Real estate guy. Yeah. Bigger Pockets. Yeah. Brandon's one of the smartest men I know, truly, like not pandering. He's my friend. So I can also tell you all the ways that he's a dick, but he's truly like, he's blessed with wisdom. It's not just intelligence. And the thing about his wisdom, and I guess this is true of all wisdom, is it's really amalgamated. He's a big quotation box. He's always talking about like, oh, in this book it says, or this person told me, or whatever. And he pulls all this information in, and then he really integrates it. And so I rely on him a lot, more than he knows. It'd probably be creepy if he knew how much, how seriously I take the things that he says. But he told me right after I sold my business, he had me up to his house in Maui. It's a really kind thing to do. And we weren't, super close at that point. We were kind of budding friends. And he said, he goes, "You strike me as the type of guy that doesn't celebrate very well. Why don't you and your wife and your kids come up and just unplug and hang out?" So we did. And we were hanging out. And he said that the best advice he got was, you're not allowed to decide what's next for a year. So many entrepreneurs are told, like, make sure you have your next thing lined up or you're going to go crazy. And he goes, the opposite is true. You actually need to know who you are without the business. You need to have that margin, that space. You need to have the discomfort. You need to get bored a little bit. So, I already had Driven figured out. Driven had launched before I sold my business, and it's not a full-time gig by any means. We meet once a quarter. And so I've committed to that. I sold in October, and that was in 22. I have a ton of ideas, as you can imagine, but I don't want to jump into something until October 23, just to honor kind of that process. And what's nice about it, dude, is it's already yielding dividends, that paradigm, because there's so many things that I would have been like, oh, okay, well, this is it. And then I would have been off like a shot on what would ultimately have been a B- endeavor. And I post a Twitter thread every day because I'm obnoxious and I like the sound of my own voice. And my most recent Twitter thread was asking the Twitter sphere how I make $100 million. I got my 8-figure exit. Now I want a 9-figure exit. And some of that's vanity, but a lot of it too, dude, is I don't want to apologize for making money anymore. I feel like we constantly get crowbarred into that position as entrepreneurs. It's how we keep score. I want to go win this game, and this is how we keep score. And I'm going to help a bunch of people the second time the way I did the first time. And so that's my plan, is I want to go for $100 million net. Getting a business that makes $100 million gross revenue, I think gross is a vanity metric. I want to get a $100 million payday, and I want to help a bunch of people doing it. I specifically want to focus on single mothers in emerging nations. I was raised by a single mom, so I know how hard that can be. But we have a social safety net here, So I can say I was raised by a single mom, but I could also say I was a trust fund baby, because the Social Security Administration of the United States is effectively a trust, and an entire country chose to invest in me and my little brother. And if you're in, I don't know where. I mean,
true. It's slightly different than most people's paradigm of a trust fund, but yes.
Yeah, but I
understand what you're saying.
Shouldn't be, it's some of that is truly just paradigm. It's like, okay, you were fed and housed in perpetuity by no virtue of your own. Okay, well, this food's a little bit better and this house is a little bit nicer, but it is interesting. When I was a young man, I was in my early 20s, 19 or 20. My business mentor took me to Egypt. And at the time, I just had this huge chip on my shoulder about being a poor kid. And it's all I have to talk about, I came from nothing, blah, 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 like just so obnoxious. And so he takes me to Egypt. It's the first time I've ever traveled internationally. And we go into Cairo, and we're in the bazaar, and there are these 5 and 6-year-old children that live on the street, and they come and they beg foreigners for money, and that's their life. And dude, the thing to think about that too is one of those kids has a 160 IQ, could probably cure cancer. Another one's going to be would be a concert level pianist. Another one, or maybe just a nice, kind, empathic human, but they lost the geographic lottery. They lost the economic lottery. Like, we have so much to be so grateful for. And dude, this got real preachy again. I don't know what kind of mood I'm in today, Brad. I don't know what happened. I'm trying to think about my morning and why I keep going here.
What's great about it is that even if you are getting preachy, it's pretty entertaining and irreverent. And so I think that when you throw, it's one thing if you've got, a religious zealot that's soapboxing.
Repent, and yeah,
exactly. And it's another if it's, intermittently cut with vulgarity, etc. I can't remember who you wanted to pee on, but
no, it was the
Marxist.
Yeah,
the Marxist comment.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but also building you said 2 different things. You said the vision here is 9-figure net, and then you said 9-figure exit, and 9-figure net company. Like EBITDA company
I've worked
is
out
different than
that's
9-figure exit.
Saving me for myself. So I've got my little notes here, and what I've decided is I talked to a guy named Ruben Hendel at Madison Alley. Ruben's really worth talking to, by the way. If you're listening to this and you want to sell an agency, Madison Alley is probably the gold standard. And Ruben is a freaking assassin. And he was, I talked to a bunch of business brokers and M&A guys, and they're all sharks in the water and they smell blood. And Ruben was the only one giving me advice that I knew was in my best interest. And what Ruben told me was, wait, he goes, dude, you're at 2 million and change. You're getting an 8X. If you wait to get to 5 million, I can get you a 13X. And I could have probably been at 5 million in 2 years. The problem is I see what's on the horizon for media buying. I see AI, machine learning. Like, I'm like, dude, I don't think I have the 2 years that it would take me to get to the 5 million. So I cashed the check, and I'm happy I did, by the way, because like 60 days later, ChatGPT rolls out, all these things start going insane. The company that bought me is a MarTech company that has AI governance. Like, I think media buyers are in a lot of trouble. That said, it was interesting to look at how quickly I could have been at $65 million. You know, if I got to 5 million EBIT, and dude, that's the thing about the growth trajectory of my company, the scalability of my company. 5 million was a guarantee in 2 years. I get to 5 million, I get 13X, $65 million. And so that's what I've decided is I can get to $100 million exit. When I say $100 million, I mean $100 million to me doing roughly $8 million a year net profit.
As an agency.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it'll be agency. I don't know if it'll be SaaS. Dude, I'm actually thinking, I know this is going to sound really weird. I'm thinking about going like straight up analog. I think a huge opportunity is
rotary phone mastermind.
Bro, like stonemasons, for instance. Have you ever, or landscaping or pool cleaning, or I've got a buddy, Tommy Mello. Tommy, he's got a 9-figure business. He does garage door repair. Now, he does it in 35 states, but, when you're trying to fight on the digital front, you're fighting against some of the smartest, most sophisticated people in the world. And that's not to say that people that are in more traditional jobs aren't smart or sophisticated, but they have, by virtue of the industry they're in, generally been left behind the times. And so if you were to take a company like Stonemason, and the reason they come up is one of my highest performing clients ever. It was this father and son team. They were stonemasons. They'd spend $2,000 in Google ads and they'd get $250,000 worth of work. But the thing that would infuriate me is as soon as they got tapped out, they turned it off. And I'd be like, you guys, like, go hire, build, grow. And they're like, no, we're good. It's just the two of us. We only so much we need. And I'm just like, oh my God, what are we doing here? But God bless them too. Like maybe they have it all figured out. It's like that Stephen Covey parable about the Mexican fisherman and the Harvard businessman. Yes. They know it's important. But
why do you use the expression God bless them or thank God as a recovering religious person and recovering atheist?
God to me right now is the amalgam that is all the governing principles. So you would think like truth, justice, fairness, honor, integrity, strength, temperance, love. Like all that, regardless of who you are, atheist, agnostic, or deeply religious, you have to agree that all that exists. And if you were to take all of it and put it in and compress it, like into a black hole, the thing that you would have at the end of it is God. And I don't mean God, old man beard. I just mean God governing entity. And those principles are governing principles, by the way, even if they're not, changing or guiding our lives the way that you would think of as like the Greco-Roman gods. They govern your behavior. Sorry.
I didn't mean to derail us that much.
Yeah, but that's always going to happen. You can't ask me questions, dude, if you don't want like a 45-minute dissertation.
A deep answer. Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask because I do the same thing, and I throw that word out, but it's mostly just a pattern that I learned when I was little, and it's like an expression that I say.
No, dude, I'm coming back to it. So I used to be repelled by any language that made anybody think that I was even close to theologically aligned. I also, I have a Muslim name, and people generally assume that I'm Muslim. And so that's also been something of a struggle in my life because I have nothing against Islam, but I also have no alignment with it. And I don't want to be the mouthpiece for it either. And so, for quite some time. You want to be
accurate too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my thing. And so I share that with you, which is that I try to be deliberate with my language so that people don't, so that I limit the opportunity that people have to misunderstand my intention, what I'm trying to communicate.
That's right. Really
language is only valuable if you share meaning. And if you have each have a different meaning for the same word, then that's going to be problematic.
Dude, what you just said is tweet worthy. I'm tweeting this right now. Language is only valuable if you share meaning. Brad Weimark.
I like it. It's perfect. It's perfect. So I can see that you were literally tweeting it right now. That's fantastic. I want to get us back on the rails too. So you had the exit and you've got this.
Dude, I'm still sorry. You shouldn't have had me on here. This is why it was so hard. It was God trying to protect you.
This is my preference. I would prefer to enjoy the conversation as much as possible. And this is how we do it.
Yeah. Cool.
So, but I also want to pull out the things that are valuable about the growth of the agency and the lessons that you learned through it. So while we're on the theme of exit and what you did after exit, and you've got some criteria around leaving the next thing with 100 million, what were the biggest lessons learned from prepping for exit? From the moment you said, hey, you know what? We want to look at selling this company. What did that path look like? And what did you have to adjust or change? And how would you guide somebody through that?
Your books have to be the squeakiest clean piece of your business. The numbers tell the story. And they weren't the cleanest part of my business. So speaking of how there's no such thing as a self-made man, my business mentor is a now 30-year veteran of the M&A world, and by his own statement, a recovering CPA. And so I was blessed because I told his name's Greg. I said, Greg, I'm thinking about selling Solutions 8. And instantly he goes, number one, your books have to be in order. And it was almost year-long process, Brad. I had to refile my 2019 taxes. We had to change the way that we cataloged basically every expense. We had to figure out terms I don't even understand still, working capital calculations. We had to, none of it was hard per se. You can wrap your head around the concepts, but it's so tedious, tedious. And we had, I have multiple entities being run out of one entity. And so we had to figure out how to unencumber them and what expenses go where. And I was like every other messy entrepreneur, I was like, well, people are getting paid. Who gives a shit? I'm paying my taxes. It's fine. And so the clean finances, and I can see, having gone through the process, how helpful it was, because it was the Bible of the discussion every single time. Anytime we negotiated anything, when we calculated the earnouts, when we looked at projections, we had squeaky clean numbers. And what's really funny, this ended up being a blessing too. I was walking through the exit process alongside a couple of buddies. I had two friends in particular that wanted to sell. One ended up doing so, one ended up choosing not to. And I got to see what they're going through, and neither of them had a Greg. Now, one of them had a fractional CFO, and so he's a little bit better off than most, but one of them was just like, oh, dear God. And he ended up eating a sandwich, if you ask me. He's pretty happy with his deal too, but he didn't have anywhere near the firepower I had. So squeaky clean books is an absolute, complete, total prerequisite. That's number one. Number two, you have to tell a story. You have to be able to tell a story, and it has to be a compelling story. I could show you 40% margins consistently across 3 years, which in the agency world is impossible. Agencies are aiming at 15%. I showed 40%, and I showed how I got there. And I could show a clear line of sight for growth. Where your customer is going to come from? Who do you think they are? How big is that market? How quickly can you scale up? Where's the ascension both in width and in breadth? Meaning, can you get more customers and can you sell those customers more things? And we had such a good story. I'd left so much. I was a Google Ads agency with customers that were begging me to run Facebook ads and begging me to do creative and begging me and I just was like, I have got really good at this one thing, but I get to go to a buyer and be like, hey, here's the 50 emails I have from some of my highest end customers, all telling me the day I roll out Facebook, they'll hire me. So you could, and this is legitimately true, you could triple the size of agency tomorrow if you had a really good Facebook offering, because you're going to take all my customers, you're going to sell them all Facebook. And if you bought a Facebook agency, you're going to take all those customers and sell them all Google Ads. And so squeaky clean books, really good story. And then just a lot of grit. There were so many times where, I'm not an exceptionally egoic person along this specific level of analysis. I can go to a bar and somebody can say something rude to me, and for whatever reason, dude, it just doesn't get under my skin. There are things that piss me off, but it's just one of those, I can really take it on the chin when it comes to kind of that interpersonal conflict. And there's so much of that in the M&A process, not really with our buyers. Our buyers are way more professional, but there are some people, dude, that come at you personally, and they try to break you down, used car salesman types that try to disintegrate the value of the agency through personal attacks. And The guy that chose not to sell, that's what got under his skin. He's like, I am sick of these bankers telling me how I should have run my business, what could have been done better, which is really funny, by the way, because when you see these M&A guys ever try to run anything, they fail. They're like the most worthless entrepreneurs in the world. That's why they're just bean counters, but they're really, really, really good bean counters. So you have to have really thick skin. And I think those three things, that's probably a good place for me to stop, dude. If you had that, then you're really well positioned for an exit.
That's helpful. I'm going to ignore the Bible reference as the second religious thing that you said that is ridiculous.
What was the Bible reference that I said? I don't even remember.
You said something along the lines of, well, I can't ignore it now apparently, but you said something along the lines of, it was, the books, they look at the books as if it's...
the books of the Bible.
It is the books of the Bible. Yeah, you used that analogy. You also used egoic, which I think is beautiful. And I just wanted to highlight the use of that word. Well done on your vocabulary, sir. I don't think I've actually ever heard that permutation of the word ego before. So that was great. And third, I'm going to shift into the next thing, which is, so those are great lessons on exit. And we could talk about growing it, but I think probably equally interesting or more interesting are kind of what you would do today if you kept it. So if you've got, if you were to keep growing it and you saw AI on the rise and AI infiltrating media buying, how would you handle that today? What would the roadmap be, or what do you think the roadmap should be for somebody that is confronted with that situation? And what do you think is going to happen?
So I think we've got at least 5 years worth of arbitrage ahead of us, which is great for agencies because it means way more profitability and scale, less costs, and ease of use. Here's what I mean by that. The AI is going to be complex. And even if it's not complex, it's going to be conceptually complex. So I just can't wrap my head around the fact that I let a computer do this. You do it so I can yell at you. And I swear to God, oftentimes that's enough of a reason to get paid is, hey, I'm willing to take the risk and get yelled at. So we've got at least 5 years of arbitrage. So if you're an agency, I wouldn't be too worried just yet. As long as you're paying attention to the fact that, oh, the computer does this better than the person, I should start having the computer do this. Don't rip off the Band-Aid. The computer does it under the observation of the person, and then you slowly taper the people down and increase the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And for these numbers are absolutely arbitrary, right? But I'm just thinking about the speed at which, it's not the speed at which the technology moves, it's the speed at which human temperament allows for adoption. And I think 5 years is about how long it would take business owners to realize, man, I'm just paying you to press that button. Why can't I press that button? And when the arbitrage days are over, and we saw this happen with web development, by the way, you used to make 150 grand selling websites, and now like a child can make a beautiful website using Squarespace in about 45 minutes. To me, and AI is able to pump it out even faster than that. As soon as the arbitrage piece is over, the current agency model as it exists for many agencies is gone. Because the work that they deem to be the work, the assembly line, is now commoditized. And a lot of agencies are selling the assembly line. So if you're the agency, what you need to do is just zoom out. And this actually is not a hard thing to do. As a matter of fact, most early stage agencies start here and then they zoom in because we're all told to niche down, which is really, really, really good advice. But it's really, really good advice until a computer can do your job. Then you've niched down too far, right? So if you zoom out, don't sell the assembly line, sell the end product. I don't need you to bolt the door on. I need a car. And what that probably means is agencies becoming more multifaceted. And then the benefit that we're all going to have is, yeah, AI exists, but his AI is not going to talk to her AI. And to put those in more tangible terms, we're seeing, basically statecraft right now. There's trillion-dollar corporations warring with each other where Google's not giving Facebook its data, Facebook's not giving Google its data, Apple's not giving anybody their data. And so you have all these silos, and within the silo, the AI is going to work perfectly because it's a self-contained ecosystem. But then if I have to figure out, well, where's, attribution being the biggest and maybe most readily accessible example, I'm spending money on ads, but I can't tell what impact this is having on this and this on that. And it's within all their best interest not to tell me. And again, I zoom out. And if you can zoom out as an agency and you can offer the end result, I think that you're going to not just be okay, but the agencies that do that well are going to capture so much market share. It's one of the biggest opportunities facing us in the agency world. And it's not just media buying. Think about creative. So many agencies right now, I think about Design Pickle. Dude, I feel, what are they going to do? Like, I can just go to Midjourney and Design Pickle is always, I really love those guys, by the way. I think Russ is brilliant, awesome entrepreneur. I think they've got great employees, great staff, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I did my job, trying not to bash them. Their design has only ever been C+. I can go get A+ design out of Midjourney in about 15 minutes of learning prompting. Mm-hmm. And now that 15 minutes is no longer necessary, especially as AI begins to learn who you are and what you need. So that type of that's assembly line agency, Design Pickle.
Yeah.
You'd need to find a way to say, I'm not on the assembly line, I'm on the end result, and here's the end result, and it involves these things. And if you can be the one, you want to move the fulcrum point. If you're the one benefiting from the increased efficiency from AI, your margins go up. If you're the one selling the thing that becomes more efficient with AI, it's over. It's literally over. And we're going to see so many blockbusters. We're going to see so many, Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix, right? We're going to see so many blockbusters that are on the wrong side of that fulcrum.
But it's going to take time, right? So like the intermediate steps are tremendous efficiency from companies like Design Pickle, where let's say they were producing C+ work, now they can produce A+ work with a third of the staff, right?
Well, that's the way for Design Pickle to survive. Is Design Pickle needs to be the first one on the AI train, and they could take 100. That's actually what's terrifying, though. If you really think about what we're saying, Brad, you take 100 employees and you turn them into one, and it really is a 100 to 1 level of scale. And then the question becomes, what are those poor people going to do?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, right? And the accelerated timeline is what makes it scarier for those people. But I think that you hit on something valuable, which is it's not actually the pace of technology that's relevant. It's the pace of adoption of the technology that's relevant. So, we're moving quickly, but people still need to A, figure out what to do with AI, how to integrate it. B, be comfortable enough with it where they'll trust it instead of trust it, like it, understand it enough to make the transition away from a human. And I think I think you're right. I think that's going to take time. And even if you accomplish some of those things, you trust it, like it, the interface, the way that you interact with it has to be right? User experience matters a ton. There's a countless number of examples of products that are amazing at accomplishing an end goal, but the user experience isn't quite good enough. And so it doesn't launch, right? And conversely, there are products that aren't as good, but the user experience is so good that they dominate, right? And that's Apple, for example, right? I think that historically, Windows machines and now perhaps Google devices, iOS, Google's operating system, Android, is more flexible, can accomplish more, can do more, but the experience that Apple created allowed them to dominate in that space.
Yeah, it's funny, dude. I just switched to Mac. I was a huge proponent of Mac as a young man, and then I got real pissy with how restrictive it was. And I'm like, look, dude, you can do this one thing one way. I can do it 50 different ways. That was always my big argument. But then I just got old. And I just became like, monkey hitting a rock. Like I just want it to work. I'm tired of sleuthing it and figuring it out and hacking it up. And I just couldn't be happier. I'm in my happy space now that I don't have to troubleshoot everything all the time.
Well, for me, as I continue to try to expand, grow, do more in my life, time is the most valuable thing. And so if I can create something with a fifth of the time, a third of the time, even 10% less time, that's the direction I'm going because I can get it off the plate and move to the next thing, right? And so the tools that you have to go really deep and get ninja with to figure them out, look, those are great, but I'm probably never going to actually maximize that tool. And if something goes wrong, it's going to suck up a ton of time to figure out what happened there. I'd rather take the basic tool that's going to accomplish the basic need to drive me towards the outcome and then do more of it to get more of the outcome.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So that's our rants about Apple. I like it. Do you have another wicked smart while we're chilling?
The one that I thought was the smartest, I was running, do you remember Pedro Adeo, the challenge guy?
Yeah.
World authority in online challenges. He spent tens of millions of dollars regularly on Facebook and Google ads. And I was running all of his traffic. I was actually really upset because right when the iOS 14 update dropped, Pedro and I just reached an agreement with him. I was going to be the traffic coach for his entire community. I just finished a course that we were going to sell to everybody. It was going to be a really big shot in my pocket. And then Apple, and I swear, dude, it was dramatic. It was like 48 hours before we were going to go live with the course. Apple throws this at us. And I told him, bro, we have to pull a plug on everything. This breaks everything that we talked about. And he didn't quite understand why, because he's not a media buyer, but he trusted me. And so we did. And it was a catastrophic error for all the people that were deep in Facebook at the time. And I'm not a Facebook agency, mind you, but I know Facebook ads really, really well. I personally know Facebook ads better than I know Google ads, which is ironic given the fact that I own the number one ranked Google ads agency on the planet. What we did to fix the iOS update was just ninja. And what's funny about it now is it's given rise. This is how stupid I am, Brad. All these attribution stuff, like Hyros just sold for $110 million. And there's a bunch of them. They all just used my hack, but they actually codified it. And I'm like, I hacked this together, and then I continued to sell media buying. So if I was really a smart person, I would have put this in a box and I would have sold it to other people. But we used Hotjar to capture user sessions on a website, which also captured the unique click ID, which is how Facebook identifies a prospect. And based off of what that person was doing on that website. So it was all pre-conversion. And to remind people, the iOS 14 update basically didn't allow you to see who was converting or what they were doing. And so you had no data. So we took everybody that was landing on a website and we used predictive indications of intent. So did they visit multiple pages? Did they stay on pages for a long time? Did they go to the pricing page or the case study page or, the estimates page or whatever? And then we would take that unique ID and via Zapier, because there's a Hotjar Zapier integration, we would drop it back into Facebook's offline conversion. And we would lie to Facebook and tell Facebook this person converted. And suddenly Facebook went from flying completely blind to going like, oh, I know who to target. And we were for I'd say 6 to 9 months, the only people that could run Facebook ads effectively. And we weren't even a Facebook agency, was the funny piece. And what's really fun for me and very validating is Facebook, we ended up doing an interview with the Meta engineers, one of the guys that's in charge of the entire ad ecosystem. And I told him my idea and he goes, yeah, that should be a best practice at this point, given how little data we have. And that was probably my proudest wicked smart. It's a little dense, but it was dense. One of those things where I was like, dude, there was a problem. We solved it in a very real way.
Well, it's dense to somebody that doesn't run Facebook ads all the time. Right. So first of all, the question is that relevant today? And second, if so, what are the bullets for it?
Yeah, it's very relevant today in different ways. What you want to do is stop relying on advertising networks to understand who your customer is and who to bring to you. We got really spoiled because Facebook was really good at targeting, Google is really good at targeting, and we basically said, all right, you do it. What people need to do now is capture first-party data, which, by the way, so easy to do. So easy to do. Any CRM.
Can you define that?
When Brad comes to Kasim's website, what pages does he go to? How long does he stay? What does he do? What videos does he watch? What does he download? Does he come back? And you can cookie this person, but what's cool, and if people hear the word cookies and they're like, oh no, cookies are dead. No, they're not dead. Third-party cookies are dead. First-party cookies are alive and well, and I don't understand a world where they could technically go away. You have to have first-party cookies. And watch that not age very well, because I'm sure somebody's going to find some, technological capability of usurping that. But for right now, it's how you deliver the experience to the user that's on your website. What's interesting about first-party cookies is I can cookie you without knowing who you are. And so you could come back to my website, 50 times, and every time you come back, all I'm doing is going, oh, okay. And then he did this, and then he did this, and then he did this, and then he did this. And the instant you convert in any meaningful way, you sign up for my newsletter, download a lead magnet, whatever, buy something, all of that data drops from above the veil to below the veil. And then I get to say like, oh, this is Brad Weimar. So Brad did these things at these times, for these reasons, whatever. And then I've built this entire profile about you that I now get to use for whatever I want. And nobody in the digital world, and this is a great business idea now that I'm thinking about it, dude. Nobody in the digital world is effectively capturing or using first-party data. And I've got some massive, Fortune 1000 clients, publicly traded. I can tell you from top to bottom, I have 200 customers. I have enough data to say this with some level of authority. Adjusted for margin of error, 0 people are doing this. But and what's funny is it's actually an easy thing to implement. Technically, it's a difficult thing to manage once you've implemented it. Because now you're like, well, I've got all this data. What do I do with it? But yeah, people started capturing and utilizing first-party data. Your ability to speak to prospects in very specific ways, it's truly unparalleled. But people don't like doing the hard work. So my expectation is they don't.
But how do you get it back into the ad platform? Because that was the hook, right?
And sometimes you don't. That's the interesting part. And that's maybe, so just to round that thought out, because of the limitations being put on ad platforms, you can't always provide them with this data. Google's Gclit has a 90-day, is forced obsolescence basically. And so you've got a 90-day window to provide Google with any updated information. And once that 90-day window is closed, so too is that opportunity. So we need to start finding a way to not rely solely on Google for the decision-making that is, how do I advertise to these prospects and these people? We also need to find ways to provide epic amounts of value on the front end to get them on our list. And I realize that it sounds like this is now a podcast from like 2004 because suddenly we're talking about the value of list building. But I mean, dude, it's funny how just the same trite marketing cliches keep coming back to bite us in the hindquarters.
Yeah, I mean, really the deal is that the same marketing techniques are going to keep replaying themselves over and over and over and over. And the technology is going to change and how you execute has to change, but the fundamentals are the same. And that's why it still makes sense to listen to all of the marketing greats, right? It still makes sense to listen to Gary and Dan Kennedy and look at what they were doing with direct mail, et cetera, because it all still applies today. You just have to be smart enough to learn how to extrapolate that and push it into the future.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We ignored their advice at our peril. And then you end up in the position that we were all in, which is you're so over-reliant on Facebook because you didn't take the time that it would have taken to build that list, which would have been the thing that could have, floated a lot of businesses. Dude, so many businesses died on the heels of iOS 14. So many businesses just closed their doors. And if they had done any level of list building, that would have been enough to get them through the 18-month hump to figure out how to transfer, what other pocket of traffic to go rely on.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So we went deep with that. I like the tactical stuff, and it's actually one of the reasons that I like Driven, like the mastermind, because it's tactical and strategic marketing things that are being done now. And that's all super interesting to figure out what can be applied, because there's consistently a period of time where you can jump on something unique and crush in that space by implementing a new technique. And sometimes that new technique has a long runway. Sometimes it has a quick one. But a lot of times there's a lesson in it that allows you to push it into the next thing. Right. So I love that. And one of them, and I think this is one that, while we're on the wicked smart stuff, this is one that I remembered and does apply to other platforms, but you had a Slack hack that I thought was great. And I've seen it used in actually with PayPal also. So the fundamentals of this were actually, you gotta just tell this one too, because it's so worthwhile. And what I would challenge anybody to do is think about how this applies to any other platform and what the key takeaways are. But tell me how you got cheap client acquisition through Slack.
Yeah, this is one I kind of wish I kept to myself, to be honest with you, because as soon as I did it, marketers ruin everything, and then people ran out and started copying me, and Slack did tighten their belt a little bit. It still works. Short version is I bought a list. I bought an email list. I was trying to get in front of high-end Shopify customers because those are the best customers for my ad agency. And we tried a whole bunch of ways. We're doing media buy and traditional and influencers and whatever. And I was like, all right, well, let's try cold email too. So I bought this list of what is Shopify's high-end Shopify
Plus.
Shopify Plus, thank you. So I bought this list of all Shopify Plus users, and we started trying to run email to them in preparation for this challenge. And I hired the best cold email group in the world, B2B Bandits, really, really sharp guys. The problem is I didn't know this at the time. They ended up schooling me up on this afterwards. They're like, dude, there's not enough time because of the way cold email works. We have to warm up IPs. We have to have there's a runway here where you need months. And I gave them like 6 weeks. So we tried the cold email thing. It failed miserably. Not their fault at all. We just didn't have enough time to do the work that you need to do in order to actually run cold email. But I had this really expensive list. And I was pissed that I had like this asset that I couldn't. It was more out of just pride than anything else. I was like, I'm not going to have this sunk cost. So how do I use this damn thing? And I realized my problem was just I can't get into their inbox. My deliverability is effectively zero. Well, a Slack invite, the deliverability on a Slack invite is 100%, right? Like they've cracked the code on making sure they can get delivered. And so what we did is we slow dripped Slack invites to a Slack group. I forgot what we named it, but it was something obnoxious. It was like, the super secret hacker Shopify invite only club or whatever. You know what I mean? Like one of those things that makes them think that they were like accidentally added. And Slack's limitation at the time was, I don't know, I'm going to get this wrong, but I'll get this. It was like 600 people a day. And so we did like 400 or 500. And the key here, first we started dropping people in the Slack group, but because there was nothing in there, people started squawking. And now you get a bunch of people in the Slack group that are just pissy that they're in the Slack group. So the way we solved that was the minute they dropped in the Slack group, we overwhelmed them with value. So I'd run this challenge, this 3X Shopify challenge multiple times before. And I had these courses that I would charge thousands of dollars for. And then there's all the notes from the courses and the case study. And then all these resources on the back end, like, Klaviyo templates and really, really, really awesome stuff. As soon as they joined Slack, we'd say like, hey, thank you so much for joining. Remember, this is invite only. Please don't tell anybody. Like really built up the scarcity piece and then said, also, here's the gift that we promised you. It's $9,500 worth of whatever, but it's yours free. And then instantly everybody got like really, oh, they made a mistake. And that's an important piece in marketing is if you can, there's that saying, you can't con an honest man. If you can convince people that they're the ones conning you, like it changes the table entirely. It turns the table. And so we got all these Shopify Plus store owners into the Slack group, got them super engaged just by dumping valuable content on them on the front end. Sold them the thing that we were trying to sell them, which was the next level. And that actually giving them the free content really helped me because the 3X Shopify challenges were amazing, but they were old. And everybody was like, well, what now? Like, now that the update happened and what do we do here? And so selling them the course became really easy on the heels of the free content. They just kind of, we did Perry Marshall's Racking the Shotgun. And when we were done with it, I sold the Slack group to a buddy who also sells the Shopify store owners. And then he ran around selling them all his education and training and widgets and whatnot. And, dude, building those little communities. And like you said, you can do this with anything. You can do this with WhatsApp, Telegram, doesn't matter. Facebook groups, those communities, if you can build them and love on them a bit, it goes back to building your list. Like they're so valuable. I kind of now in retrospect wish I didn't sell it. I should have just kept it and continued to cultivate it. But I was done selling that product and we weren't going to do it again. So I thought I was done.
Well, look, I think that there are two huge takeaways there. One is what we've highlighted, right? Which is look for a tool that has near 100% deliverability, and that's how you get a hold of people because attention is so difficult. It gets throttled at every turn, right? So find a tool to do that. The other one, though, that I think is a really valuable takeaway is that you did sell it. So what ends up happening with a lot of entrepreneurs is shiny object syndrome. And they see, hey, there's this mechanism, and then they start to get it going and it starts to do something, but it's a distraction. It's not the core business. And then they allocate a disproportionate amount of time to doing it. And then they're stuck in that world. And all of a sudden they've created another job for themselves where they're like, shit, I've got another product I've got to support.
That's a really good point.
I love that you sold it. I think that that's great. Years ago, what it made me think of when I heard it is years ago, I knew somebody that did this with PayPal, and they sent a penny to thousands of people via PayPal because the PayPal deliverability is amazing, specifically when you're receiving money. So they get a penny from some random person. It guaranteed that they hit the inbox, right? And then from there, you can be creative and do whatever you want. But same concept, right? It's leveraging somebody else's credibility for the deliverability. And I love it.
Yeah, that PayPal piece is really brilliant because now I've given you money. You have to listen to me.
Yeah. And, whatever that thing is, right? And you've got this endless, the endless narratives that you can paint from that. A penny, a nickel, a dime, a quarter, all these things have funny marketing messages that you can hook to them. Good God, that's a giant water bottle. So it's like 3 liters or something.
That's a full gallon. I don't mess around.
So I can't convert gallons, liters. I don't know.
Oh, I don't need them. I'm American. I went to public school.
Kasim, I know we are approaching time. I appreciate you carving out the time because we have tried to do this a variety of times, and I love it. I think that there's a lot of good stuff that's relevant to different stages of the business. If you want people to find you, where might they go about doing that?
I've got a link tree at kasim.me. My first name, KASIM.me. And that's a good jumping off point. You can hit my YouTube channel. I shoot a YouTube video every day. My Twitter feed, I do a Twitter thread every day. You can I had the number 1 selling book in marketing and advertising worldwide called You versus Google. You can have that for free. You can join Driven, give me $25K and you can hang out with me. Really, the sales pitch is hanging out with other cool people because I'm, as you can tell, hard to talk to. And then I'm the co-host of Perpetual Traffic, which is one of the top ranked marketing podcasts in the world. And you can come listen to Perpetual Traffic and I'll put you right to sleep.
I love it. That's not going to happen. I do think, though, that the pitch for basically all masterminds is hang out with cool people.
Yeah.
More accurately, hang out with people that are performing at some level. And I think that there are some idiots in those groups very often. There's some assholes in those groups very often.
Yeah.
And periodically idiots. But I love the Driven group because the other part, true story, my number 1 criteria in groups is, are there going to be good connections in the group, right? Good relationships to build. But under that is, what's the information that I'm going to get? What am I going to learn and take away? And some groups are stronger than others in that department. And it really depends where you are in business. But, no placation here. You and Perry contribute to Driven from that perspective in a very significant way, right? It is what's working. It's very well thought out, or at least tested. And that was a jab at Perry.
There's some ready, fire, aim in there.
It's absolutely, but that's the beauty of it too. So look, man, I'm a huge advocate. I love learning from you, hearing what you've thought through and done, and talking in general. I appreciate you carving out the time.
Thanks for having me, brother. Appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely. Love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. I need your help. There are 3 places you can find Beyond a Million. The podcast itself, beyondamillion.com, which has some cool free resources, including a free course. And we finally launched the Beyond a Million YouTube channel. I would love it if you would go there and subscribe. And if you don't want to, you still would probably enjoy seeing the visual content. Check it out, youtube.com/@Beyond a Million.